And so, Fin 790 Summer Seminar. Some of you have already signed up for it. Thank you very much. It's kind of an interesting thing for finance. The only calculation you'll do in there will be of your grade. It's all reading papers and learning about the different ways in which people are scumbags and the different ways that that comes out in business, which is kind of fun. It's a good way to take care of your MBA seminar requirement, which you guys, if you didn't know, you got to have one of those. And it also counts toward a finance certificate if you're into that sort of thing. They're telling me to remind you about evaluations. Evaluations are now available. One thing I would like to hear from you guys is whether or not you think these little tidbits that I've been throwing out here are useful or not. And so go ahead and tell me what your thoughts on that are, because this is the first semester that I've tried this. By the way, today's secret is the secret to negotiations. Do you know what the most powerful word in all of negotiation is? No. Oh, so someone said no because they didn't know the answer, but the answer is no, right? So, yeah, so it's being willing to walk away. Now, you have to be willing to walk away, but no is very powerful. So here's my one example. It's 1995. My wife and I are buying my first brand new car, a Honda Civic in Oklahoma City. And we're sitting there, and of course they're doing the normal thing about where they have to go off and ask the manager, and then they'll come back. And while they're in to talk to the manager, my wife says, "I'm really hungry." I said, "Well, I saw a Taco Bell on the way." That's like our favorite restaurant. I saw a Taco Bell on the way. She says, "Well, let's get some food." And I said, "Yeah, these clowns will still be here." And so we get up, and we're walking to the door, and they come chasing me. They're like, "Okay, we'll give you $500 more." Right? And on a $15,000 car, that was pretty good. So being hungry, my wife being hungry, saved me $500, minus whatever I spent at Taco Bell. Okay, so most powerful word in all of negotiation? No, but you've got to be willing to walk away. Any questions? Okay, first of all, while you guys are passing that out, I want you to think about Excel. And you guys probably think of Excel as being pretty boring and pedestrian stuff, but it's an amazing productivity enhancement. Because after you learn how to use Excel appropriately, you will be able to do the work of more than one person. And that means that A, you should get paid more, and B, when the time comes to get rid of someone, it probably won't be you. And so I would recommend that you all pay close attention on working with Excel. Okay, so let's talk about the Baldwin Company. Last time, we talked about the marketing study. It's the first real number that they threw out here. So here's what I'm going to do. When you build an Excel spreadsheet, what you want to do is put as many of your inputs in the upper left-hand corner as you possibly can. And here's why. I'm going to refer back to those later on, and that way I can change one number up here at the top left-hand corner, and it changes everything else. And that's why we say that Excel is a what-if machine. Well, what if we can get $12 a piece instead of 10? What if we only sell 2,000 units instead of 4,000? That sort of thing. So I'm going to put as much of that information up here in the corner as I can. And as I come across numbers, I'm going to be reading through here. As I come across numbers, I'm going to go ahead and put them in, and then we'll make a comment on what we're going to do with them. So the first thing we see is the marketing study. By the way, you know about the double click to get the column width to, yeah. It's amazing who doesn't. Okay, so here we go. Marketing study, how much was it? 250,000?
Yes.
Apparently, the number lock's not on. Okay, so we've got that nailed down. In any case, the Baldwin Company is now considering investing in a machine to produce bowling balls. Bowling balls would be manufactured in a building owned by the firm and located near Los Angeles. This building, which is vacant, and the land can be sold for $150,000 after taxes. So we've got a building here. We've got 150. Okay. Now, first of all, let's identify what kind of cost the marketing study is. What is it? Yeah, it's a sunk cost. Are we going to include it?
No.
Very good. Do not include. Now, what about the building? Opportunity cost. Are we going to include it?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Working with his staff, the cost of the bowling ball machine is $100,000. So, bowling ball machine, that's the machine we're going to use to make this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and say year 0 because this is the upfront cost, 100, 1, 2, 3. By the way, when you're doing installing machines, the costs associated with installation are included as part of the cost of the machine. So this could be an $80,000 machine that costs us $20,000 to install, and it would be $100,000 at time 0. And of course, we're going to include that. And then what else do they tell us about the bowling ball machine? It has an estimated market value at the end of 5 years of $30,000. So I'm going to say BB machine year 5. And it's $30,000. Now some of you may have noticed that I put the formulas over here on this side of the board today. The reason is I had 3 people from the online class say we really couldn't read when it was over there. So that's why it's over here and it's larger. Hopefully the formulas are the same as last time. Okay, now it says production per year during the 5-year life of the machine is expected to be as follows. Okay, at this point I'm going to go horizontal, and you'll see why once we get rolling, why that's the right thing to do. So I'm going to say year here, and if it's a 5-year project, what years should I have up here? How many years should I have up here? 6. Why?
Year 0.
Yeah, we got to have year 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we've got production. I could have typed balls up there, but one of you would have laughed. Okay, now let's talk about the units. Tell me if I make a mistake typing this in. We've got 5,000. By the way, why did I not put 5,000 at year 0? Year 0 is kickoff. How many balls have we made?
0.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then 8,000 in year 2, and 12,000 in year 3, and 10,000 in year 4, and then 6,000 in year 5. Are the sales going to remain steady once we fire up? No, we've got every year is a different number on the number of balls that we sell. Okay, so now we've got some more stuff that I want to put up here in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to do some inserting, and we're going to keep pushing stuff down as we have to. The price of bowling balls in the first year will be $20. BB price year 1 is $20. It's not year 0. There we go. The bowling ball market is highly competitive, so Meadows believes that the price of bowling balls will only increase at 2% per year. B growth 0.02. I'm going to format that as a percentage. Okay, let's see what else they tell us here. Compared to the anticipated general inflation rate of 5%. I don't know if we're going to use that, but I'm going to put it in here just in case. When you get into talking about nominal versus real numbers, which we'll discuss at the end of this chapter, that's where inflation comes into play. Okay. By the way, how do you save as you go? What's the hotkey for saving?
Control.
Yeah, Control S. Or on Mac, what is it, Apple S or whatever? Yeah. Save it as often as you can. It's good now, we've got autosave on a lot of stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work, so I would save if you want to avoid losing some of your work. Okay, conversely, the plastic used to produce bowling balls is rapidly becoming more expensive. What is plastic made out of? Yeah, oil and natural gas. And so can you see how the price of oil and natural gas would impact plastic costs, and so we're looking at a systematic risk here, right? Okay, the production costs, cash outflows are expected to grow 10% per year. First year production cost will be $10 per unit. So let's go with BB cost year 1 is going to be $10, and BB cost growth is 0.10, and then we'll go ahead and format that as a percentage. And I'm going to save it again. First year production cost will be 10 years. Yeah, we already know that. Okay. So Meadows has determined, based on Baldwin's taxable income, that the appropriate incremental corporate tax rate in the bowling ball project is 34%. There we go. Which would this be? Would it be the average tax rate for the company, or would it be the marginal tax rate for the company? Yeah, it's going to be the marginal, because it's the incremental, right? It's the very next dollar. We're going to add this profitable project on top of an already profitable business. Okay, now let's see what else they tell us. Net working capital is defined as a difference, like any other. They find they must maintain an investment in working capital, purchase raw materials before production and sales, giving rise to an investment in inventory. It will maintain cash as a buffer against unforeseen expenditures. And its credit sales will generate accounts receivable. Management determines that an immediate year 0 investment in the different items of working capital of $10,000 is required. Total net working capital for each subsequent year will be 10% of sales. Okay, so we've got net working capital year 0. How much was it? 10,000?
Yes.
Thank you. And then, oh, not the percentage, you moron. And there we go. And then after that, we've got it as a percent of what?
8% of sales.
Yeah, percent of sales. And we talked last time why that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and insert some more space here. Okay, and from then on, it's what, 10% of sales?
Yes.
0.10. There we go. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. I think we could go ahead and start figuring out some numbers here. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And by the way, even if I have to come back later and insert stuff, it will know that I inserted stuff, and the formulas that we're going to type in will change. I'm not going to be worried about that at all. The first thing I think we need to calculate here is the price per unit. And we know, they tell us that for year 1, it's 20. So I'm just going to go up here and select that and hit enter. And then, how would I find year 2? Any ideas? Yeah, so we're going to say equal to, and then click on the previous cell, multiply by, open parentheses, 1 plus, and then I'm going to go up here and click on bowling ball, oh, I should say price growth up there. What? Well, of course I want that. Okay, so, bowling ball price growth. Okay, now, if I just take this and copy it over right now, if I just drag it over, will it work? No, why not?
Because it's not absolute.
Yeah, so this growth rate here, we want to keep referring back to this bowling ball price growth. So we have to fix that one. Otherwise, here's what's going to happen. It stays the same because it's going out here and grabbing this and saying, well, that's 0 growth. So we don't want to do that. How can I fix this cell reference? F4. I'm going to hit F4. It puts a $sign before and a $sign after. Students often ask, well, can I just type in the $signs? And I say, of course you can, but I never can remember whether they come first or last. And I always guess wrong. So I just go ahead and hit F4. If you're a Mac person, you can go out there and Google and see what your hotkey is to do that. Okay, now, here's something I want you to notice. We've got prices that are in things that are smaller than 1 cent. So we could, at this point, round these to 2 decimal places, which is what your book does. We're not going to do that. You can go out and play with that later if you want. But as a result, our NPVs are going to be like $1 or $2 off. Nothing big, but I want you to know that's part of where the difference comes from. Okay, now, could I, at this point, figure out what are my annual sales? Annual sales in dollars. Could I figure that out? Yeah, it's just the price times the units, right? Equal to the units of production multiplied by the price per unit. Now, do I need to fix either one of those references with the F4? No. I'm going to pull that over, and there we go. So this is our annual sales in dollars. Okay, now let's go see what else we can figure out. I'll bet we could do cost per unit. Let's see, there's our cost. So I'm going to do that at time 1 equal to, I'm going to roll up here and click on 10, hit enter, and then how am I going to get the second year? Yeah, same as the first, as the price. I'm going to say equal to, we're going to click on the one behind it, multiply by, open parentheses, 1 plus, and then I'm going to go up here and click on this cost growth, and what do I need to do? F4, that's going to fix that cell reference. I'm going to close parentheses, and then I should be able to drag that over. Okay. Now, I'm going to be able to figure out something because I have both the price per unit and the variable cost per unit. I should be able to figure out something called total variable cost. Total variable cost. How do you think I can figure out the total variable cost?
Price minus cost.
Say again?
The price per unit minus the cost.
Or are you so we're looking at total variable cost. Say again? That's the cost per unit times what? Oh, yes. Very good. Would you hand this up to her, please? Thank you. Okay, so she's absolutely right. So it's equal to the total number of units per year multiplied by the cost per unit. And then I'm just going to drag that over. I don't have to fix any cell references or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and say this. Now, in this project, they don't give us any fixed costs. But I'm going to go ahead because I'm going to put this spreadsheet out for you guys to download it. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to download it, I want you to put it on a thumb drive, and then I want you to wear it around your neck for the rest of your lives, because when you have to go do one of these, I guarantee you that you will not remember. But I want you to be able to pull this example up and see what we did. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put fixed costs up here. And I'm going to say 0. Not percentages, but you know, whatever. There we go. By the way, accounting, what does that mean, the minus sign? It means 0, right? Let's see if we can do this another way. No, we don't want to do that. How about a number? There we go. So I'm going to go up in here, select that. I'm going to hit the F4. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to drag that over. How would I get my total annual costs?
Add your variable and your fixed.
Yep, add your variable and your fixed. Equal the variable cost plus the fixed cost. Then I'm just going to drag that over. And if someone came around, oh, by the way, what does it mean when you see the number signs like that?
It's too large.
Yeah, the number's too large to be displayed, so what's the solution? Yeah, you gotta go up here and make them bigger. So I showed this to my mom, the double head here, and she's like, wow, that's like magic. And she's kind of right. Okay, so there we go. So now we have our total costs. What else are we gonna have to know before, let's see where, by the way, here's where we're headed. We are trying to get our hands on CFFA, and that's gonna have these three components, OCF, net capital spending, net working capital. So far, which one of those three are we working on? Say again? So we haven't really started playing with it yet. We've got 2 pieces of information for it. What have we actually started calculating here? OCF. Who said OCF? All right. Whoa, she caught it. Which I'm amazed because it was a bad throw. Okay, so back to the story. We're working on OCF here. In order to figure out OCF, we need to have EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes, which in order to figure that out, we have to have depreciation. That's why we're adding depreciation back, because this thing's been subtracted out. So we don't have depreciation yet. We do have our tax rate, but because we do not have our pre-tax income, we haven't been able to calculate our taxes yet. So in order for us to go any further with operating cash flows, what is it that I'm going to have to calculate? Let's try this one more time. In order to calculate this, I have to know depreciation. In order to calculate this, I have to know that. We have all the information for this except for depreciation. Thank you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to, I'm going to start another thing down here so we can get an idea of this whole depreciation thing. We're going to have a separate group down here. Okay, and we will, in fact, we're going to have to kind of start working on our NCS, net capital spending, in order to get this depreciation. So, what are the things that we're going to spend money on here to get started? Year 0. Yeah, the machine. So we're going to say BB machine. Don't do that. Machine. And say again.
Buildings, land.
Yeah. So the other thing is going to be the building. Very good. Okay, so let's talk about the bowling ball machine. We're going to say we know it costs 10,000 or 100,000 at time 0. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put a line in here. Actually, I'll put 2 lines in here. Okay, now the bowling ball machine, we've got 10,000 or 100,000 up front. Is there any cash flow for it for year 1? No. Is there any cash flow for year 2? No. Is there any cash flow for year 3? No. Is there any cash flow for year 4? No. Is there any cash flow for year 5?
Yes.
Yes, what is it?
30,000?
They said 30,000, but that 30,000 is the market value. So what we have to figure out is the after-tax salvage value. In order to figure that out, we have to know the book value. And the way that we calculate book value, once again, you have to have depreciation. So let's go ahead and figure out our depreciation. By the way, is there any depreciation on the building? No. You're going to have your opportunity cost up front, and then you'll get that money back at the end. You say, wait a minute, what if the building wasn't fully depreciated? That depreciation would not be incremental. right? You're going to be charging that depreciation regardless of whether you do the project or not, assuming you don't sell the building. So that depreciation on that building would not be incremental. The insurance on the building, assuming it doesn't change as a result of the project, would not be incremental. So the only thing we're really doing with that building is we're putting in $150,000 up front and we're getting it back at the end. But in the meantime, here's what I want to do. I want to figure out depreciation. And so actually let's start with how we figure out depreciation, which is the modified cost recovery system. The modified cost recovery system, if you look at table 8.3, you will see how we do, or at least so since 1986, this has been the law. Occasionally, they will throw stuff out like, oh, well, you can depreciate faster, so we're trying to encourage investment in this or that, and they'll do that. But this is the baseline. This is what it always goes back to once these tax cut things expire. And I want you to notice some things here. There are different recovery period classes. We have 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. Now, the first thing I want you to do is look there at the 3-year class. How many of those decimal numbers are under 3 years? 4. And I want you to look under 5 years. How many of these decimal numbers are there under that? 6. There's always one more. I don't want you to count it, but there's 21 for the 20-year class. Now, here's the deal. We're going to take these decimals that we see here, and we're going to multiply it by historic cost for a given year, and that's going to give us the depreciation for that year. And I want to point one other thing out to you. When you add all these numbers together, these decimals, what do you think they add up to? 1. And what that tells us is that we are depreciating to 0. If we can actually hold on to this 3-year asset for 4 years, we'll get down to 0. If we actually hold on to the 5-year asset for 6 years, we'll get down to 0. So I want to go ahead and put in these percentages that we have from the modified accelerated cost recovery system for the 5-year class. By the way, they tell us in the project that this is a 5-year class project. So here we go, 0.2, and if I make a mistake, please let me know. 0.32, 0.192, 0.1152, 0.1152, and 0.0576. Now, it's a 5-year life, it's a 5-year class. Will we be able to depreciate all the way to 0? No, we've got, 5.76% hanging out there at the end. In fact, I can tell you that in year 5, the book value of this thing is going to be $5,760. How do I know that? Because that's 0.0576 times the historical cost. That's how much is left to depreciate, because the rest of it's been depreciated. Now, during the exam, you're going to get one of these, probably a 4-year to make it a little easier. But I'll say, after 3 years, what's the after-tax salvage value? You could add all up the first 3 years and multiply that by the historical cost and figure out what your depreciation is. Subtract that from the historical cost. That's the long way and most likely will lead to a mistake. The better way is to look at what's left. Well, hey, there's 0.0741% left. I'm going to multiply that by historical cost. That will give me the book value, which I can use to find the after-tax salvage value. Okay, now just in case you haven't played with depreciation before, if you look at page 238, they have a note on depreciation. And just to give you an idea of what falls into this sort of stuff, 3-year classes include specialized short-lived property. Tractor units, that's the front part of a semi-truck, that's 3-year. And racehorses over 2 years old. I did not realize it until I had someone in my class that raced horses, and they said you can't race them until they are 2 years old. Remember that an asset is something that we expect to bring value to us. Well, you're trying to match the expense with the time that it's bringing value. Those horses don't bring you value until after they're 2 years old, and then you got to depreciate the snot out of them because apparently they're only good for 3 years, right? Or unless you can put them out for stud. I don't know how the depreciation works on that. Okay, so then a 5-year class includes cars and trucks, computers, as well as calculators. Can you guys imagine depreciating your calculator? The trick was, back then when they did this, calculators were quite expensive. I remember buying my first Texas Instruments calculator, TI-30, and I saved up like for months and months to buy that because, you know, like a big old nerd, right? But back then, you could actually depreciate calculators. Still can, I suppose. And typewriters. How many of you have actually touched a real typewriter? Oh, wow. Was that at your high school? Oh, you guys didn't, you learned how to keyboard, right? So you just touched it as a matter of curiosity. Yeah. Yeah, I learned how to type on those things. Okay, now, hit the 7-year class. I'm not going to go through all this, but the fun thing about the 7-year class is it is a catch-all category because assets not designated to be in another class are included here. So you can read through all that and figure out what it is that you should be using. By the way, should you trust textbooks for these sorts of numbers and categories, or should you go to the IRS website? Yeah, always go to the IRS website because the textbook could be out of date. They could have passed a law. Money is changing right now, and you just got to go right out there and take a look. Okay, now back to the story. How in the world am I going to figure depreciation now? I am going to say equal to, and then I'm going to say multiply by, and it's going to be the historical cost up here. So it would be the machine in year 0. What button do I need to hit right now? Yeah, I got to hit F4 because I want to fix the cell reference for that historical cost. And then I'm going to drag that over, and that's going to give me my annual depreciation. And I can then figure out the book value. And the book value is simply, for this one, I'm just going to take it from up here. It's the same number, right? If I change it up in the corner, it's going to change down here. How would I figure out the book value at the end of year 1? Yeah, so I'm going to take the historical cost minus the current period depreciation, which is this formula right here. So we're taking last year's book value and subtracting this year's depreciation to get this year's book value. And I'm going to drag this all the way over, and we'll see that we would not hit a 0 book value until after the party is over. Okay, now while we are here, let's take care of this building. We know we've got that opportunity cost of $150,000. Boom. And then, what do we assume? We assume that we get all of our opportunity costs back at the end. And keep in mind that we're looking at net capital spending here. That's why it was positive at the beginning. What does it have to be over here? Yeah, it's got to be a negative. And I got to be careful to put it in year 5 and not year 6. Equal, negative, boom. And once again, that's all linked up, so I don't have to worry about it if I decide to change that later on. Okay. Well, now we have our depreciation. We can figure a couple of things. We can figure our after-tax salvage value here in the net capital spending area, and then we can go back and figure out what is our operating cash flows. So let's go ahead and figure out what is our after-tax salvage value. So by the way, we discussed there aren't any cash flows at 1 through 4. Here at the end, we have equal to, and then that money, so money going out was 100,000 positive. What would money coming in be? What sign would it have? What sign would it have? It's got to be negative, right? Because it's money coming back the other way. So I'm going to say equal to negative, and then I'm going to say open parentheses. And I'm going to be putting this formula in here in Excel speak. So that's what we're doing next. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to grab the market value of the machine in year 5, which is this number right here, minus the tax rate times, open parentheses, the market value minus the book value. Remember I told you it'd be 5,760? There it is. And then I'm going to put 2 parentheses. Why 2? Yeah, so if you've got one of these, you gotta have one of these. If you've got 7 of these, you gotta have 7 of these. Okay, so we're gonna hit enter here, and it tells us that it's minus $21,758.40, which I think they have minus $21,760. It's very, very close. Okay, we actually now have enough information to calculate our net capital spending, and it's going to be equal to what we're spending on the bowling ball machine plus what we're spending on the building. And I can just drag that over. Whoop. Come on. Drag that over. And there we go. There's our net capital spending. Now, this is one of the 3 things we're looking for. We're looking for OCF, NCS, and change in net working capital. I'm going to go ahead and make this bold so we know where to find it. And we know that's one of the 3 things we're looking for. Okay, now we said we needed depreciation in order to be able to figure out the OCF. And so the next thing we need to do up here, I'm just going to insert several lines here. What should I put up here next? What did I say we needed in order to be able to move forward on this thing? Yeah, depreciation. Depreciation. And we know we could just say equal to, click on that, and I'll just drag that over, and there we are. Okay, so I've got my fixed costs, I've got my variable costs, I've got my depreciation. It says EBIT. Are we going to do anything with interest at all on this project? No, why not? Say again? Because you're not interested? No. Yeah, lame. Okay, so remember we said, how did we say that we are accounting for the cost of our financing? I'll give you a hint, it's a percentage, not a dollar value.
Discount.
Yeah, the discount rate, right? It's the discount rate. So that's how we're accounting for it. So we're not going to have any interest in here. And so our EBIT is going to be the same as our EBT. So I think we are ready to calculate our pre-tax income, which would be our EBIT. Do you guys think we're there? You guys, I've got 2 people nodding their heads. Thank you for being awake. Okay, here we go. EBIT, or pre-tax income. If I've done something stupid, please let me know. Okay, so here we go. We're going to say equal to, we're going to take our annual sales minus our total costs minus our depreciation. Does that look right? Would you guys know if it wasn't? Oh, good. She says she does. Okay, so there we go. We pull that on over, and there we go. In fact, if we look in, let's see if that's in a table somewhere, we can check our work. I don't think so. I think we're going to have to figure out taxes in order for us to know for sure. So, how do we figure out our taxes? What's that? Okay, you're skipping ahead. So here's what she's saying. If we take our pre-tax income multiplied by 1 minus the tax rate, that gives us our after-tax, right? But we're going to go ahead and figure our taxes because we're gonna do it using this formula here. We need to have our tax number. She's just too clever for me. Here we go. Equal to, I'm going to go up here and select the tax rate. What do I need to do right now? F4. I need to fix that cell reference. Multiplied by, yeah, the EBIT. And when I do that, we get taxes of $10,200, which matches up with what the book says. Now, in order to calculate OCF, I have to have EBIT. Do I have that already? Yeah. I have to have depreciation. Do I have that? Yeah. And I have to have taxes. Do I have that? Yeah. So we can go ahead and calculate operating cash flow. And it's going to be equal to, by the way, what's operating cash flow in year 0 always? 0, right? Equal to, I'm going to take EBIT plus depreciation minus taxes. And that's going to give me my OCF. And I'm just going to drag, just going to drag that across. Come on. There we go. Okay, now that's one of the 3 things we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and bold that. Now, if we'd gone about it the way that she suggested, taking the EBIT multiplied by 1 minus t, what we would have had to have done is after we got that number is add back our depreciation. That's the only difference would have been to have just added back the depreciation at that point. Okay, I think we are doing great here. So we have OCF, we have NCS. What are we missing?
Change in network.
Yeah, the change in net working capital. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these. Boom. And I'm going to have net working capital. Not the change. I'm going to start with the net working capital and then we'll use it to find the change. Okay, so we know they tell us in year 0 that we have to have 10,000, so we just go up and click on that. And then they tell us after that that it's 10% of sales per year. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say equal to, and I'm going to go up here and click on our annual sales multiplied by this number right here. But what button do I need to hit right now? F4. Otherwise things will go terribly wrong. And I'm going to drag that over. Now I want you to notice that the net working capital does not change between year 0 and year 1. And that just happens to be because 10% of 100,000 is 10,000 bucks. But then it changes beyond that. Okay, I'm going to hit save here. And then I'm going to show you one of the goofiest things in Excel. Here we go. Oh, by the way, we want to put in this symbol right here. Is there a key on your keyboard that allows you to do that? No. And so what we do is we go to Insert and Symbol, and then let's go with Symbol. And by the way, what language is that?
It's Greek.
It's Greek, so it's going to be, come on. Lisu. Ooh, what if I just go up here and say Greek? Greek extended. No, maybe we don't want the Greek extension. Maybe we want the Greek. Come on. Aha. Boom. There it is. I'm going to insert that. And it all looks fine and good until I try to type NWC and then see what happens. It changes the font size. Why? I don't know. But you know what? I've been doing this for too long, over 20 years, and they have not fixed that problem yet. It's annoying. So there we go. So the change in net working capital, to start out with, we know that we have to make basically a deposit of 10,000 bucks here. How would I find change in net working capital thereafter? Take the current value minus the last value, right? So I'm going to say equal to the current value minus the last value. Boom. And then I'm going to drag that over. And remember that the minus sign just means 0 in accounting. Oh, and we've got some more of this kind of problem. By the way, what do the parentheses mean in accounting? Negative. So I'm going to unaccounting this. Yeah, and sometimes that just leads to troubles for people. There we go. Okay, I do believe that this is the last bit that we need to calculate CFFA. So let's talk about this whole change in net working capital thing. In the beginning, as we are ramping up sales, we have to put more and more money into the net working capital. That makes sense because we are having to purchase more inventory. We're having additional accounts receivable. We're also going to have some additional accounts payable, but they're going to be smaller than the accounts receivable unless we're really crummy business people. And so you're going to see it as marching up. Why then does it start to decrease? It all comes, I mean, we're just looking at a flat percentage of sales here, right? What happened is the sales peak in year 3, and after that, sales fall. Now, there's one other thing that we've got up here that is currently wrong, and that is that we assume net working capital goes to 0 at the end. We assume net working capital goes to 0 at the end. So I can just go ahead and type 0 right here, and that's going to give me a different number out there at the end. Now, why is that the way that this works? Well, we're taking the last of the raw materials, we're throwing it in the machine, we're spitting out bowling balls, then we're selling those bowling balls for accounts receivable, we're collecting the cash, we're paying off all our bills. At the end, we just end up with a big pile of money, and that money, whoop, goes back to the mothership. We don't get to throw a party or anything, it goes back to the mothership. Okay, do we have enough information now to do CFFA? Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and we'll do our own little set of years down here. CFFA, and we said that CFFA was equal to operating cash flow minus net capital spending minus the change in net working capital. Then I'm going to drag that all the way over. Now, if you look at line 6 from table 8.4, they're calling this the total cash flow of the project. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And so we can see that it's minus 260 up front, and then it goes positive, and then it gets really positive at the end. And the reason it gets really positive at the end is because we're getting back our after-tax salvage value, we're getting back our net working capital, we're getting back our opportunity costs. So those are the things that are pushing it up there at the end. At this point, do I have enough information to calculate net present value? I'm missing one ingredient. What is it?
Required.
Yeah, the required rate of return. Thank you. Okay, we're missing the required rate of return. So usually we are either asked to figure out what is that rate, or we are given that rate. Instead here, what they've done in table 8.4 is showed us NPVs at different rates. So what I want to do here is I'm going to put in a line for rate, and then I'm going to put NPV down below. And we'll start out with their rate of 4%. And we'll go from there. Do you think Excel has a function for net present value? Yeah. Is it correct? No. Okay. I will show you how to uncluster the NPV for this. So here we go. Equal NPV, open parentheses. Now, you notice it's asking us right now. So tell me the rate. And so you hit the rate, and then what do I have to put after the rate? Comma. And then it says, I want you to look very closely. Does it say value 0? No, what does it say? Value 1. So we have to go over here and, and by the way, I could have just written all these in and put commas, right? But it's so much easier to just put C43 colon G43, which I did just by highlighting those cells. I'm going to close parentheses. Now, what that gives us is not NPV, because it is basically giving us the present value at time 0 of the cash flow starting at time 1. In order to get this thing to actually give us an NPV, we have to account for that initial cash flow. And it's already negative, so what I'm going to do is hit plus and hit the time 0 cash flow. And when I do that, I get $123,643, which is within $2 of what they get here in table 8.4. what did I tell you the difference was due to? Do you remember?
Decimal places.
Yeah, so we had extra decimal places on both the price and the cost. If you wanted to go back as an experiment just for your own gratification, feel free to go back and see what happens. Because there's a function, right? There's a function that will round it. By the way, is rounding the same as truncating? No, truncating is where you just cut the number off. Rounding, if it's like 0.625, then you round to 0.63. And if it's 0.624, okay, you're giving me a strange look there because in engineering,
0.65.
so let me tell you what I'm thinking here, and then you can tell me if I'm. So everybody else in the world, 0.625 would round to 0.63. Engineers say it depends. If the number is even, the two, then you round down, and if it's odd, then you round up. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't expect that from you guys. Nobody expects that from you guys. So if it's 0.625 in this class, it rounds to 0.63. If it's 0.635 in this class, it rounds to 0.64. What if it's 0.624?
62.
Yeah, 0.62, right? Okay. Oh yeah, big pain in the butt. Okay, now.
More than or equal to 5.
What's that?
The rounding should be more than or equal to 5.
Should be,
Equal or more than 5.
yes. Yeah, if it's equal to 5 or greater, then we round. Exactly. Okay, now, at a 4% discount rate, the NPV for this project is $123,643. Do we accept or reject? We accept. Why? Yeah, it's positive. Now, the slight difference between their numbers and our numbers, would it cause us to accept or reject differently? No, not really. Okay, so, by the way, I'm going to hit Control S here and save this. Let's see what happens when we put in their number, their next number, 10%. I'm getting $51,590.11, which is $2 off from theirs. Would we accept or reject? Yeah, we would accept it. The next one they put in is 15%. $5,474, which is $2 off from theirs. Do we accept or reject? We accept it. Now, in the real world, would I start to get a little sketchy here?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm having to invest $260,000 to gain wealth of $5,000. I would start thinking, I don't know. Because remember what happened to me in Dallas, Texas with the concrete. We start putting in this bowling ball machine and we realize we've got to take out some concrete and put it in. We could easily blow through way more than $5,473. Okay, now the next one is 15.67% with an NPV of 0. By definition, what would we call 15.67%? What is the discount rate that makes NPV equal to 0? IRR. Now, so if I type this in, notice that I come up with something other than 0. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is that, remember the dollars, or the rounding of the cents on the prices. And the other one is because undoubtedly that 15.67% number they put in there is rounded. It's rounded from 15.66 and a bunch of other crap. So, how in the world would I find IRR? Well, I am going to, by the way, I'm going to show you how easy it is to find IRR. Do you think there's a function? Oh, absolutely. Equal IRR. Do you think the function works?
Yeah.
Yes, unlike NPV, the function actually works. I'm just going to select all those cash flows, and there we go. Do you think it's truly 16%? No. Boom, 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 boom. Do you see it just keeps rolling? Now, let's prove that that is the discount rate that makes NPV equal to 0. What if I go up here and I say equal to, and I select that number? And that gives us 0. Okay. And so at this level, would we accept or reject the project? Reject, right? And we would, if we were using the IRR rule, we would say we would, no, I'm not even going to go there. Okay. So we've got our IRR, we've got our NPV. Did you see how easy it was to come up with IRR after we had NPV? Yeah. Do you see why? You remember that last slide of chapter 7 where it was talking about what happens in the real world and the numbers for NPV and IRR were almost identical? That's the reason. If you're doing NPV, you might as well go ahead and do IRR. And vice versa. Okay, now, let's see, at 20%, negative 31,350, we're off by, once again, $1 or $2. Do we accept or reject? Yeah, reject that one straight up. Now, one thing that I could do with, you remember we had the unconventional cash flows? I can actually put those unconventional cash flows in for CFFA, and the way I can find my IRRs, because there's going to be multiples, right? The way I could do that is to calculate NPV for that set of cash flows for every possible combinations of returns. And I'd do it like 0.01%, 0.02%, and so forth. And what's going to happen is you're going to see that NPV shift from being negative to being positive, or being positive to being negative, and every time you see that shift, you're going to have an IRR. So students sometimes ask me, how do I find something beyond the first one? By the way, how did we find the first one? Your TI-BA 2+ calculator gives you that first IRR. It's the second one that's a pain, right? And you can use Excel to do that. Just look for where the signs change. You know you've crossed 0 when the sign changes, right? And as a result, you know you've had another IRR. Questions? Okay, now, anytime you make a spreadsheet, you should always check it to make sure that it's giving you the right answer. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get our calculators out, and we're going to hit CF, second, clear work. What should I put in for CF0? $260,000, negative, enter, arrow down. What's C01? 39,800, enter, arrow down. C02, 54192. Oh, do you see what I'm doing? Yeah, what's that 01? 1, right? Enter, arrow down. C02, 54,192. Enter, arrow down, C03, 66,845.76. Enter, arrow down, C04, 59,895.7. Enter, arrow down, C05, 224,649.63. Enter. If I want to find IRR, what should I do next? Yeah, hit the IRR button. Is it 0? No, what do I need to do? Compute. And I'm getting 15.67712,318. 15.67712. And it's a little bit different here. Why do you think that might be? Yeah, so it really comes down to this number right here. Let's take a look at that. You see all that extra junk? So there's the extra junk on that one. There's some extra junk on that one. So that's why we're not getting exactly the same number. Now, while we have these numbers in our calculator, let's go ahead and make sure that the NPV works. I'm going to hit the NPV. I'm going to hit 4, enter, arrow down, compute. And then I will put in 4 here. And I am getting exactly the same number. So you go through your, you build your spreadsheet, and then you test it with your calculator. And you say, well, wait a minute. If I'm going to test it with the calculator, what's the point of the spreadsheet? The point of the spreadsheet is something I mentioned to you earlier, and it's about productivity enhancement. If you end up doing this quite a bit, you can just change the numbers. For instance, let's say that this year we decide we're going to put in one bowling ball machine, but next year we decide we're going to put in another one. Well, it's likely that the cost of the bowling ball machine is going to go up. It's likely that some of our other numbers will have changed, but we could just change those up in the top. By the way, if I just put another bowling ball machine in the same building, would I have to include that opportunity cost at that point? I'm already covered it in the first project, right? So if it's just the extra machine, it's just the incremental cash flow that's going to happen there. Unless I could make some argument that I could have done something else with that space, blah, blah, blah. But no one is going to buy a square footage inside your plant, right? They'll buy the whole thing, but they won't buy just, there we go. Okay, any questions? So what do? You save this thing and I'll put it out on Brightspace, and you can download it and carry it around, and I don't expect you to do that. Save it to your Google Drive, right? And years from now, if you can remember your Google password, you'll be able to get to this. Okay, so let's see what else we've got on our PowerPoints. Now remember, I put the inflation in and I said I don't know if we're going to be using it or not. The time that you're going to be considering inflation is if you have a mix of nominal and real values. Remember, nominal is the actual numbers of units of currency, and the real cash flows would be all in year zero dollars. So dollars become worth less over time. We haven't had deflation yet, but they become worth less over time, and so those numbers will get adjusted accordingly. Now here's the deal. We can have both nominal and real rates of return. We can have both nominal and real cash flows. If I discount my nominal cash flows with a nominal discount rate, I get exactly the same NPV as if I discount real cash flows at the real rate. And so what I really have to do is to make sure that I convert everything to either real or to nominal. Let's assume that I had 18 different numbers. 17 of them were nominal, 1 of them was real. Would I convert the 1 real to nominal or the 17 nominal to real? Yeah, you convert the 1, right? You do the smallest amount of work possible for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm lazy. And number 2, how many opportunities are there to make a mistake when you convert 1? How many opportunities to make a mistake when you convert? Yeah, 17, right? So don't do that. Okay, I'll show you why this works, this idea of discounting with this, we get the same NPV either way. I'll write a formula up here. I hope you recognize it. And I'm going to use the big R here on purpose. You guys recognize this formula? Okay. Now, these are all nominal. These are all nominal. Let's see how we would get, what we would do to put this into terms of real and inflation. It turns out that inflation compounds just like interest. And so if I have little FV here for the real return, or the real cash flows, and I multiply that by 1 plus h to the t, and then I divide by the way, so Fisher effect says that 1 plus big R is equal to what? Oh, come on, you guys. Chapter 5, it hasn't been that long ago. 1 plus r is equal to 1 plus little r times 1 plus h. Do you remember that? And then what we do is we take this to the t value. No, I'm blowing your minds algebra-wise here, but it gets even worse. Here we go. Here's your value times 1 plus h to the t, and I can 1 plus r to the t multiplied by 1 plus h to the t. Mr. Sabev is not here to check my work. Any other mathematicians in the room? Is my math okay?
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. I knew I had to ask a non-American, right? Okay, so here's the cool thing. What happens?
These and that.
Really, just cancel out, right? Whoop, whoop, gone. And so nominal discounted with nominal is exactly the same as real discounted with real. And of course, the year zero cash flow. What's the difference between nominal and real for year zero? They are all the same, right? Because after all, we were putting our nominal cash flows in terms of year zero dollars. And so they are the same. Questions? Okay. Now we're going to talk about investments of unequal lives. And we're going to be talking about specifically replacing a machine or buying a machine, and the machines serve exactly the same purpose. They are exactly as productive as each other. The only thing that differs between them are two things. Number one, the costs, and number two, the length of their lives. So I'll give you an example from my own life. 1995, I buy that Honda Civic I was telling you about earlier. 1997, thanks to my mechanical malpractice, I destroyed my wife's 1988 Chevy Cavalier. I had to get her a new car. And at the time, she's in school, I'm the only one working. I've got to figure out how to get her cheap transportation. But I hate buying used cars, so I look around at what's available. And I noticed that the Honda Civic by that time was more like $17,000. And so I'm looking for something cheaper than that. And I come upon the Dodge Neon. The Dodge Neon, it actually had more horsepower than my Honda. It was kind of a sweet ride. Until at 50,000 miles, it started leaking every fluid known to man. And, you know, keep in mind, I'm a mechanical engineer, right? I should know this stuff. It was leaking things I couldn't identify. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Okay, so, but in my Honda Civic, it went on and I sold it. It had like 120,000 miles on it and it was still perfectly fine. I'd had to replace the clutch. That was it, right? Okay, so we've got two machines here of different lives. They cost different amounts of money up front. How do you know which one is the better investment? And this is where our investment of equal lives analysis comes up. So, if the lives were simply the same, all we would do is take the present value of all those expenses. And by the way, they're all going to be the same sign, right? Because we're going to pay out at the beginning and we're going to pay. So they're all the same sign. I would just take the present value, the sum of the present values, and I would adopt the one with the lower present value of cost. However, when they have unequal lives, I can't do that because I might get extra use out of that Honda. Even though I paid more for it, maybe it's the better deal. Who knows? And so how we're going to do this is we are going to calculate what's called the equivalent or effective annual cost. The equivalent or effective annual cost. In a nutshell, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all those cost numbers from the entire life of the machine, and we're going to crush it back to time zero using present value. And then we're going to use our time value of money keys to expand it into an annuity with the same life as the machine. And then we are going to calculate the payment for that annuity, and that is going to be our equivalent annual cost. So we start out by crushing everything back to time zero using present value, and then we are going to blow it back out to where we have If it's a 3-year life, we're going to have 3 equal payments. Nothing at time 0, 3 equal payments at times 1, 2, and 3. And the amount of that payment, which is going to be the same for each of those 3 years, is going to be our equivalent annual cost. And I'm going to do that for both of the machines that I'm examining. And which do you think I will take, the higher or the lower equivalent annual cost? Yeah, I'm going to take the lower one. Who likes to spend money? I don't, right? Okay, so I'm going to set up the example here. The example is a tennis ball throwing machine. This is a country club is thinking about replacing their tennis ball throwing machine. By the way, country clubs, where rich people go to get away from poor people. How do we keep out the poor people?
Make it expensive.
You make it expensive to join, right? And so that's how you keep out the poor people. Now, you guys might assume that all rich people have friends, but it's just not true. And so you have some rich people who want to practice their tennis game, but have no one that will play tennis with them. And so there is where we get into the tennis ball throwing machine. Okay, so we have 2 possibilities for the tennis ball throwing machine. We have machine A. And machine A costs $500 up front. And then it's going to cost us $120 a year in maintenance. And then at the end of year 3, it's going to die. Machine B costs $600 up front. And then it costs $100 per year over the 4 years for maintenance, and then it dies after 4 years. And so project A, or machine A here, is a lot like the Dodge Neon, and machine B is a lot like the Honda Civic. And at this point, you would say, well, I could easily tell you which one I would invest in. You're missing a piece of information, and that is the required return. Because, and I could demonstrate it to you, if I have a rate of return that is high enough, the cheap one will always win. And here's why. Those future values are discounted at 1 plus r to the t. If that r gets large enough, those present values become so small that they are not much of anything compared to that initial, right? So a year $0 is worth way more than a year 1, 2, or $3. And so if R is high enough, the cheap option will always win out. But we'll have to look at this one, this project in particular, with that discount rate to see which one of these should win. Are there any questions? Okay, I will see you next time.